John, thank you so much for coming on our
Thank
show,
you for
by the
having
way.
me.
You're associate producer at Capcom.
Yep, I'm an associate producer there.
And now Disney Afternoon, it's 4 games.
Six games.
Six games,
yeah.
It gets better. That all originally launched on the Nintendo Entertainment System, correct?
Correct. These are Capcom Disney collaborations from the 8-bit era.
Okay. So why bring this out now?
Why not?
That's a good
answer.
I mean,
you got me.
one of my my biggest exciting points about this is that I turned 30 a couple of years ago. I'm getting older, and as I get older, I'm getting more nostalgic for my childhood.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And because I grew up playing games in the 8-bit and 16-bit era, like my gaming history had a huge foundation with these Disney games.
Yeah.
Not only was I a fan of Disney and Capcom, I was also a fan of just the Disney shows themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't tell you how many times I watched DuckTales or Rescue Rangers.
Yeah, I think the Capcom Disney games, they have a very special place in my heart. I had them all growing up. But I think there's something interesting to note about how important they are, or at least were and continue to be now. Licensed games are normally bad.
Yeah, I was going to say this.
Straight up. Like, they're
I think
usually pretty bad.
There was a kind of golden age where I think games just as a whole were kind of, maybe not simpler, but they were, I guess, easier to develop because they weren't, they weren't like super high-res detailed stuff. So it was like, making a cool, weird DuckTales game. Also, games were so new. Like, DuckTales is kind of the basis for Shovel Knight nowadays.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah, and it's, you're hopping around on the moon with a cane as a pogo stick. And then you got Rescue Rangers, which is like awesome co-op. And then, so let's just first of all run this down. We've got DuckTales 1 and 2, Rescue Rangers 1 and 2,
Correct.
Tailspin, and then Darkwing Duck. And these are like the original, like classic, like pixel art style. This isn't like weird.
These are not remakes like the previous DuckTales remaster. These are the originals, and we've added some additional features to make them more accessible to a modern gaming audience.
Do you have like the rewind thing in there?
Yes, actually, that's something that we worked with our developers, Digital Eclipse, to do. As you know, we released Mega Man Legacy Collection a few years ago, and one of the feedbacks that we got was that these games are very challenging.
Yeah.
One thing that I myself, as someone who's in their 30s who grew up playing these games, kind of look at those games through nostalgia, rose-tinted glasses. Like I remember, oh, those games were so fun, they were easy. I started working on these games, and they were so challenging. And I don't ever remember being them that way when I was a child.
I wonder what that if part of that is that sort of you have this ability as a kid to persevere through stuff like that, whereas nowadays like you give up easier as an adult, which sounds odd. But so one of the things I wanted to ask you about now, one of the really special sort of things that brought the Mega Man collection together were the kind of bells and whistles in terms of the old sketches, old pieces of art and stuff like that. Like a lot of that stuff really appealed to me because I was like, all right, I played through the Mega Man games a bunch of times. It's awesome and convenient to have them all in one place, especially somewhere like on the 3DS where it's portable. Was it harder to sort of reach into the Disney vaults and find concept art for old DuckTales characters and Tailspin comics and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, I like the word challenging, but yes, it was a challenge to get some of this stuff because, as you guys know, working in media, back in the day, things weren't archived nearly as well as they are now.
Yep.
With digital hard drives, digital files, HD movies, all that's really easy to archive. But back in the day, these were all, the shows were animated using pencil and paper and colors on paper. So it was kind of difficult to go back and get a lot of this art, but we worked with our partners over in Japan at Capcom Japan and with Disney here in the US, and we were able to find a lot of really good content that we could include in the package.
That's awesome.
Now, what I'm fascinated about this is you're connecting 3 huge companies that aren't necessarily known for playing well together, but also like, you've got Disney, you've got Capcom, and you've got Nintendo, who are all these kind of like, these pillars. Who had the most bits and pieces of this left over? Was it all in Capcom stuff, or?
Well, these games were developed at Capcom,
at
Capcom Japan, and with Capcom USA. So we did have a majority of the original assets.
Okay, and then did like Disney have to come in and sign off on everything you were doing, and then?
Yeah, everything we've run through Disney. We go through the approvals process.
Now, did they seem cool with it? Is it possible we're going to see like a Disney Afternoon Collection 2 or something?
Right now, this is the only one we're planning.
Okay.
But Disney was awesome throughout the entire process. I got to work with them really closely. Their producers down there.
Yep.
Our producer down at Disney, Glenn, was an awesome guy to work with. He really did help us throughout this process get everything looking great.
So we're looking at Rescue Rangers right now, or just where, here's Tailspin. Rescue Rangers is one of my favorite NES games ever made. It's the one I played with my brother all the time. To me, it's a precursor to something like New Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
It's one of the first co-op games where you could pick up your brother and throw him to his death, which is really fun. The animation here, the emulation here looks incredibly clean. Now, I noticed last week Nesticle, which is like one of the internet's favorite emulators, turned 20 years old.
I feel old.
And,
Wow.
So obviously people have had nostalgia for these games for a very long time, but getting emulation running on HD consoles seems like the easiest thing in the world because you're like, oh, it can run anything. It can run an 8-bit game. That's apparently incredibly challenging, right? So can you talk a little bit about sort of like what it was like to bring these games to modern platforms on a technical front?
Well, a lot of the heavy lifting was done by our partner Digital Eclipse, and they worked with us on Mega Man Legacy Collection as well. They have an engine that actually decompiles the original code from the original games.
Wow.
And then it recompiles it into code that can be used on current gen consoles and computers.
Oh,
so they've got it down.
I almost understand that.
Yeah, they've got it down to an exact science. So it actually did a lot of the work for them, but it was still challenging to make sure it was right. If you notice in a lot of the videos that we showed, and if you've actually played a build of the game, we've included some of the original I guess charm points of the 8-bit era with like the flickering or the frame rate slowdown.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because there's this weird nostalgia for things that don't necessarily work well, but existed. Flickering, slowdown, there's scan lines and stuff like that I see in a lot of retro games as the option to make your TV look like the piece of crap TV your parents had in the 80s. Are you guys are you trying to work a lot of that stuff into this game as well?
Absolutely, and we do actually have filters for CRT scan lines and monitor scan lines, and that's actually one of my favorite ways to play is on with the CRT filter because it's got the ghosting that you remember.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was a really cool part of that, and it's one of those things where I don't think we really knew what we were looking at the time. And looking at modern pixel art games now, everything's so clean, so it's cool that you do have both of those options.
Yeah. What I love is that it's easy to look at this and be like, oh, like I could just get ROMs or I could find these like used at a flea market or something. But you guys are going in and really like you are remastering this properly. I mean, it's got the scan lines and everything, and you've got the bonus stuff. I think the rewind feature is really like just a nice compromise to revisit something you're nostalgic about, but it's not just going to beat the crap out of you. So you've got concept art. You also have music in there?
We have music. We have a music player that actually extracts music from the original games themselves, and you can listen to it without actually playing through the game. You can go back and forth and listen to the tracks. And in the menus, this is probably my favorite aspect of the music. We have 8-bit remixes of the original tunes.
Nice.
That's awesome.
And if you go into each game's selection page, there's a remix of not only the title theme, but also music from within the game itself, all into a medley.
So like if you have a girl over, you could put on the DuckTales moon level, just set the mood.
DuckTales and chill.
Yeah, well, DuckTales and chill. But I mean, we do actually have a slow jam version of the Disney Afternoon theme.
Oh,
that's
amazing.
Okay.
It's in
Max and I put on the theme song for the trailer for the original theme song, and it just immediately brought me back to that era. And I think what I really appreciated about that era, and the games did the same thing, was school sucks. It's hard, and it's tough when you're a kid, and you get off of school, you go home, you open up a box of like Gushers, and then you start eating like gummy worms and stuff like that.
Just have a nice glass of Capri Sun, you know?
You turn on the TV, you have a nice like glass of Capri Sun, and you see all these weird animal men just getting into hijinks with each other, and it's fantastic. So, like seriously, thank you for like bringing all of this back together, because I think it's easy for us to sort of throw that in the back pockets of our minds and to never really revisit it. And I think Capcom does a really good job of sort of taking these things that we grew up with and going like, no, these are awesome, and this is a good time to sort of, I think the theme of like the question I asked you earlier is why now, and you're right, why not?
Yeah. No, it's funny because like I grew up and I remember seeing like there was that nostalgic Disney stuff. I mean like Mickey Mania, another Capcom game, is kind of an example of that. Like I didn't have any fond feelings for Steamboat Willie, but there was a generation of probably 70-year-olds who did.
Yeah.
So like now we're old enough that like going back and being like, oh, like that thing, oh, that's like 25 years old. Okay, now it's our turn. Now we get like nice high-end, adult-oriented, remastered collections. So
yeah, and I mean that was the whole point of this collection. When from the second you turn it on, you're hit with the 90s in the face.
Yeah,
like it just smacks you right across the face. The music, the art style, just everything in there we tailored to turn on that nostalgia switch in 90s kids like us.
That's awesome.
I think there's an incredible sort of preservation aspect to it too, where you run into this issue all the time with video games where it's not like a book where you can just pick it up 50 years later. Video games are sort of hard to preserve. Like stuff like Tailspin is not really a game that's ever been ported, and specifically with Virtual Console, which we saw from the Wii to the Wii U, and now with Switch, hopefully. You didn't really see a lot of these games make it over there, so it's cool to finally have a home for this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to play like Tailspin on your PS4, you either have to void your warranty, break the law, or both. And you know,
please don't do that.
So, do you think that or how do you imagine the sort of younger audience is going to interpret this or inherit these new games? Because like it's cool now that like Twitch streaming is a thing. We didn't have that when we were kids. You would just like send tapes into Nintendo Power. So do you think this is going to be something that like younger kids will gravitate to, the challenge and all that?
Well, I really hope so. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why we were so adamant about putting in that rewind feature.
Right.
But at the same time, you know, like the 90s kid in me was like, well, these kids have it easy with everything. I mean, they need to be figuring it out on their own. But we wanted to make sure that we had the mix of both worlds.
Yep.
So, you know, it's not. We do have like a background that says you can rewind, but if you turn that off, and if you want to be kind of a mean older brother or uncle, you can turn it off and not tell them about the rewind feature.
Like, one of the things I love to watch around the summertime, which is coming up, is like summer games done quick, awesome games done quick.
Yeah.
Those like YouTube shows where they basically just like they speed run as insanely as possible through games like this, and I think this will give you a great opportunity to do that. So you, as like a Twitch streamer who wants something kind of relaxed, you can use the rewind feature. But if you're like insane and you're pro level, turn all that stuff off and play.
Or if you're just practicing, you know, you just want to get in the habit of it.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because we actually have 2 extra modes that we are very happy with that we put in the game. Time attack mode, which is a speedrun mode.
Oh wow,
nice, perfect.
And you have your screen right here, and then you have the time running in the on the side, and then we have a boss rush mode for each game. So you can go through the bosses in succession and try and beat.
That's great.
Yeah, beat others, and there is leaderboard functionality and replay functionality with both of those features.
And that's for all the games?
For all the games.
That's awesome. So that includes the boss in Rescue Rangers who's just like shaking cigar ash on you?
Yes.
I love that you had to get like, that's like the one ESRB like point of contention. They're like, there's use of tobacco in here. It's from a cat.
It is very weird to get, spoilers, but to get to the end of that game and there's just a cat in a business suit sitting at a table and he's just like trying to flick cigarette ash on it.
Real weird.
The 90s were a different time.
Yes, they were.
Anyway, this is out the 18th?
April 18th,
And it's $20?
$19.99.
$19.99. It's on PS4, Xbox One, and PC. So, you know, if you have the same flavor of nostalgic brain damage that we do, check that out.